Hey, what's up, you guys? This is John Chacon with Austin Performance Fitness, coming at you with another segment of the Coach's Corner. Today, we're going to be talking about a great stretch that many people do in many different gyms and many places that is quite helpful and quite simple. It is called the glute stretch. You'll know what it looks like when I do it. In fact, most of the time it's called the seated glute stretch. But I'm going to talk about, no pun intended, I'm going to talk about a few things today that are actually going to get you more out of the glute stretch. It seems like such a simple thing, and yet very often it is done either in a poor manner, incorrectly, or unsafely. And sometimes people just do not feel it right. And I'm going to talk about how that happens or why that happens and how you can get into a better position to get more out of this great stretch. So, first things first, talking about our butts, but more specifically for this movement, we're talking about external rotation at the hip. So if I'm just sitting here and I rotate my entire leg outward, where the toe is pointing out, I'm actually externally rotating my hip at this place right here. It's not all coming at the ankle, so it's at the hip. So problem is, sometimes we get into a squat or a deadlift or a lunge, many different movements. If we have poor external rotation, or if we have an impingement somewhere in our hip where our femur meets our hip, it can cause some problems. And gaining more external rotation through this glute stretch is going to be very helpful when, again, performing your squats, deadlifts, lunges, those kind of things in the gym. And so it's going to help you to mobilize and get into a better position. So it's very helpful before, after workouts, or something you want to do in your stretching routine at night, whatever it might be. So commonly, when people are getting into this position, what will typically happen, the knee will be more forward than the foot. The foot will be back behind you. I'll kind of show you from the side. And the foot will almost be back towards the opposite hip. And the back knee will be kind of bent. And then usually when people get into it, it's kind of rounding at the back, just kind of falling forward. And most of the time when I ask people and find them in that position, they're really not feeling anything. They're just kind of going with the flow. And that's my chance as a coach to kind of get in there and get them in a better position and find what works and what doesn't work for their body, but hopefully get them in a position that actually provides them some kind of benefit through this stretch. So, a couple key things first, guys, is setting yourself up in a good position that makes sense, mobilizing in a position that is safe, and putting yourself in a position, like you wouldn't put yourself in a bad position for a squat, for a deadlift, for a lunge, right? You keep your spine nice and neutral, so why would you do it in a stretch? I recommend stretching in a way that is similar to how you would perform your movements in the gym. So we want to maintain those things first. So, number one, neutral spine. Shoulders back, head, shoulder blades, tailbone, all in line. Next, you will get far more out of this stretch if, number one, instead of having your knee go out to the front in the center, you drive it out to the side so it's almost either outside the hip or parallel to the hip. I'm also going to drive my foot more forward. It's not so much the foot, but when you bring the foot out, and because we're pressed against the ground, it's actually going to cause more external rotation of the hip. Okay, so I'm going to push my foot out, and my foot, for some people, different lengths of their lower leg and their upper leg, so it's all going to depend. What I'm going to do from here is I'm actually going to staple down my knee and my foot, okay? I'm going to show you guys what you can also do if this does not feel like a good position to begin with, okay? So, once I got those in place, I want my back knee or my back leg to be straight and pointed straight down. I don't want it to kind of curve out and point away from me. I want everything as far as my hips go to stay in line. So from here, I'm going to mobilize. I'm going to start lowering my hips towards the ground, maintaining a flat neutral spine. Now from here, this is one really cool thing that a lot of people do not do, but I think you could find some benefit from it. What I'm going to do is, and I would call it scouring, but really what I'm doing is searching for the stretch for this movement. Maybe I don't feel it so much right here, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to push off my knee, and rotate away from the knee, see if I can find something in there. And then from here, I'm going to push off my foot, come the other direction. I'm just kind of scouring around in that area where my femur meets my hip. From the other side, again, setting myself up, I'm searching in this area right here, finding out where I can find and get the most out of it. The reason I staple down that foot, though, is because it has a tendency to, as we're moving around and scouring, to kind of come back towards the hips. we want to keep it out there so we can keep that hip externally rotated. Okay, so 1, mobilizing in a good position, in a safe position. 2, staple down your feet, your foot, and your knee to get more out of it. Number 3, move around, explore your business. Find where that stretch is and where your body needs that stretch. Last thing I'm going to talk about, guys, is if you have a hard time getting in that position, or even some people I've run into, it actually causes them pain because they're forcing themselves in it, whether it's, I've had people in large yoga classes and stuff like that where they find themselves in pain and nobody else is. But usually what happens is their body's just not able to mobilize in that position. So for a lot of people, what helps, especially if you're stiff and you're tight, just find an elevated surface. Weight bench, like the one I got here, is a great example, and I'll show you that. You can use a plyometric box or something with some kind of sturdy object and flat object to get on. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to set my hip up by laying that leg, that shin bone across the top of the bench. I'm going to slowly lower my hips down, okay? Making sure that I'm not up here curled, hunched over, but dropping the hip low. And again, stapling down my foot and my knee. Okay, and then same thing from here. I can also scour those areas, rotate in, rotate out, and find what works for me. The other nice thing is you can let this back hip extend in a much, much safer manner if you have a hard time letting it extend on the floor, okay? So let that be an option for you. You can get so much more out of that stretch. It is a great stretch, and I highly recommend it, especially for helping you to get into a better squat position, more so than the deadlift and the lunge. But it will also help with those. Any movement that requires external rotation, which is anything where we're lowering our hips from a standing position down to the ground, it will help a ton. So, hope that helps you guys out. Use it, use whatever parts of that you want, all of it or none of it, or one part, and whatever you need. Use it to your advantage. Explore your business. Give it a shot. I hope that helps you guys out. This has been John Chacon with Austin Performance Fitness with another segment of the Coach's Corner. Stronger every day. Peace.